Welcome to Gun News in 5 minutes or less, where we will talk about events and happenings in the gun industry, ammunition pricing and so forth, politics related to firearms, personalities, new releases on the market, and anything else I can fit in. This is brought to you by DR Drake 63. Today we're going to talk about government's role in the ammunition shortage. If you've been to your local gun store, Walmart, whatever recently, you realize that the shelves are next to bare or completely bare, or there's limits on what you can buy. We've covered on this channel what's happened to prices during the course of the last year, and they continue to rise. The question begs to be asked, is the government involved in this shortage? There's going to be a lot of folks who form conspiracy theories, and it's understandable to an extent when you see the rhetoric that comes out of the mouths of elected officials and politicians in the political arena as well. They've made it very clear, along with well-funded organizations, that they'd like to see firearms ownership dissipate or disappear. If you look at what's gone on in this country in the last year in terms of violence, mob rule, defunding police movements, and things of that nature, perhaps you're not the biggest of conspiracy theories or craziest of tin hat wearing folks to have these beliefs. But let's talk about this just in terms of simple economics. I'm not going to bore you with long, detailed discussion. That would certainly take longer than 5 minutes about distribution, economics, supply, and demand. All we have to do is look at what happened with toilet paper last year to understand what excitement does. But we are going to look at some specific numbers. We're going to start. The FBI reports there's 104 million gun owners in this country, 1.5 plus new million firearms every month. If everybody gets 200 rounds, that's 300 million per month. The U.S. produces 2.8 billion rounds per month under good circumstances. That's 11% of capacity being taken by new gun owners. So where does that leave existing gun owners? That leaves, for every firearm in the country, 24 rounds a month, which is approximately half a box of shells for either your Glock or 1911, one box of shells for something like a M1 Garand or an AR. So people like myself are spending a lot more time shooting 22s, which is still the cheapest way to go, but that puts a run on that kind of ammo. Now, the government actually makes their own ammunition at various facilities from a military perspective. However, various law enforcement agencies in the government, such as Homeland Security and the IRS, is weaponizing its agents. While these government purchases definitely put pressure on ammunition manufacturing, we're talking about millions and not billions of rounds being affected by these actions. Now, I'm not here to make a statement that the government isn't in any way involved in the ammunition shortage or not. There's a lot of strong feelings out there. There's a lot of people believe that everything's a conspiracy. Point of this video and showing you the numbers I did earlier is simply to lay out the fact that the government doesn't need to be involved in any kind of conspiracy to make ammunition shortages happen. We do that ourselves. People's buying habits change. We showed earlier that there's a finite amount of ammunition capacity in the country. Yes, there's some imports that are also available, and those numbers tend to run about an additional 8 to 10% of the total capacity. And that's an area where I could see the government taking action with the stroke of a pen, an executive action or something like that, to prohibit imports of ammunition. Now, there's a couple other statements earlier with the numbers that you could argue with. I mentioned that there's 104 million gun owners per the FBI. I did my calculus, so to speak, based on each one of those gun owners owning one gun or that representing one gun, when in fact there's an estimated 450 million firearms in the United States. A lot of them never get shot. My hunting rifles, for example, will see less than 10 rounds a year typically, especially if they're already sighted in. But on the other end of the spectrum, under normal times, I might shoot semi-automatic weapons such as an AR platform or a Mini 14 or something like that, or handguns I might shoot 500 or 1,000 rounds a month. So I think it all in the end kind of balances out. But the purpose of this video was to show you the government doesn't need to get involved to create these situations. In addition, I've talked to a number of gun store owners, both locally and on the phone across the country, just out of curiosity. They have ammo, but they're saving it for their people that want to buy a new firearm. Because who wants to go buy a new firearm, especially if it's a caliber that's new to you, and not be able to use it? So they're smartly hanging on to some supplies to help them sell the firearms that they have. That's one thing to remember about Americans. And if you're not an American and you're watching this video, the thing to understand about us is if you tell us we can't do something, we typically want to do it. And that's in our heritage. You can just ask the British about that. And this has been Gun News in 5 minutes. Well, I guess a little bit over 6 minutes today. For updates, hit click and subscribe.